The first time I met Karen Madsen, she was standing on her driveway at 6:02 a.m., holding a clipboard like it was a badge of honor. She wore a salmon-colored tracksuit, white sneakers so clean they gleamed, and a frown that seemed carved into her face. "You parked 2 inches over the line," she said flatly, without introducing herself. "Driveway encroachment violates HOA Rule 14B. I blinked, still bleary-eyed from my night shift at the firehouse. "Good morning to you too." That was Karen, president of the Iron Ridge Homeowners Association for 6 consecutive terms, self-appointed guardian of what she called neighborhood excellence. The rest of us called her something else, privately of course. I moved to Iron Ridge for the quiet. It sat high above the valley, perched on rugged cliffs that turned gold at sunset. The views were unmatched. So were the rules. Karen enforced, everyone with the zeal of a border patrol officer. Mailbox paint codes, lawn height, wind chime volume. But the one that mattered most to me wasn't about aesthetics. It was about safety. A quarter mile from my house stood a metal gate, tall, black, and bolted into concrete. It marked the trailhead to Ridge Point Bluff, a steep descent that led to popular but treacherous hiking trails along the cliffside. Over the years, dozens of hikers had needed rescue. That gate was the fastest way down, and it was designated as emergency access. I knew because I'd used it. I'm a veteran firefighter and certified in vertical rescue. When someone slipped on those cliffs, that gate was our lifeline. At least it used to be. 2 weeks ago, during a routine training hike, I found the gate chained shut with a thick padlock. The keypad had been disabled. I contacted the HOA immediately. The email reply came within hours, signed by Karen herself. Due to increased foot traffic and potential liability, the Ridge Point Gate has been sealed until further notice. Residents should use designated access points at Trailhead North. Kay Madsen, HOA President. Trailhead North was a 5-mile detour. For hikers, it was inconvenient. For rescue teams, it was catastrophic. I brought it up at the next HOA meeting. Karen presided from her usual seat at the head of the community center's conference table. Her hair was pinned back like she was preparing for a court hearing. "The gate is not public property," she said, without looking at me. "It's maintained by HOA funds and is therefore subject to our discretion. The county easement says otherwise." I countered, placing a printed copy of the access agreement on the table. "It's meant to remain open for first responders." Karen picked it up and skimmed it like a menu she'd already memorized. "We'll review it," she said curtly, before pivoting to a complaint about someone's aggressively painted birdhouse. I left the meeting burning with frustration. It wasn't just about red tape. It was about time. Life and death minutes we couldn't afford to lose. Karen didn't get that. She saw the world through liability clauses and HOA bylaws. People weren't people. They were risks to be minimized. The tension grew over the next few days. I filed a formal objection. Several neighbors signed a petition. Karen ignored them all. "She's power tripping." My friend Paul, another firefighter, told me over coffee. "She probably thinks locking that gate earns her some imaginary merit badge." I agreed, but I knew it would take more than words to pry open that gate or dislodge the woman who locked it. Then, just as the days of summer deepened, the call came in. 14-year-old male, fall injury, Ridge Point Bluff, possible compound fracture, requesting immediate extraction. My pulse surged. I knew the spot, I knew the trail, and I knew the one thing standing between us and that injured boy, a gate, and a woman who'd turned safety into a personal power game. The sirens screamed through Iron Ridge like a blade-cutting silence. Gravel kicked under our tires as the rescue truck surged up the winding road. In the passenger seat, I checked the call sheet again. Patient, Cody L. age, 14, condition, severe, leg trauma, possible internal bleeding. Location, midpoint descent on Ridge Point Bluff. I knew that terrain, steep, narrow, exposed, every second mattered. We'll shave off 10 minutes if we hit the cliffside gate. I told Brandon, our driver. He nodded and hit the lights harder. As we crested the ridge, my gut tightened. There it was, the gate, still locked, still chained, still mocking us. Brandon slammed on the brakes. I jumped out before the wheels stopped turning. The padlock gleamed under the morning sun, thick and immovable. I tried the keypad again, just in case. Still, dead, cutters, I barked. Still 3 minutes out. We didn't have 3 minutes. Behind us, the medic team was prepping the stretcher. I scanned the cliff. No alternative path. No time to go around. The boy was down there somewhere, alone, bleeding, scared. Then I saw her. Karen Madsen stood on her balcony, arms folded across a silk robe, watching us like it was theater. Her expression was unreadable, calm in a way that made my teeth clench. Crossed the lawn and called up to her. We need access now. She took a sip of coffee, eyes narrowing. That gate is sealed for liability concerns. If you fall, the HOA could be held responsible. My fists curled. A kid has a broken leg halfway down that cliff. We need to get to him. You have other options, she said, her voice flat, detached. The gate is not open to unauthorized personnel. Emergency services are authorized under county agreement. I wasn't informed of any new arrangement, she replied, and turned away, disappearing behind her sliding glass door. I stood there for a moment, stunned, not by her refusal, but by the ice in her tone. It wasn't indifference. It was control. Karen wasn't worried about liability. She was thrilled to be the gatekeeper. Back at the truck, Brandon was already on the radio. Dispatch. Gate is locked. No access. Requesting helicopter extraction. Immediate priority. Coordinates to follow. The reply was quick. Air support en route. ETA 9 minutes. Confirm patient visibility. I jogged to the bluff's edge and pulled binoculars from my gear bag. Scanning the slope, I spotted him, Cody, curled on a ledge, his left leg bent at an unnatural angle, face twisted in pain. His father knelt beside him, waving a bright orange bandana. Visual confirmed. I radioed. Moderate slope. Possible loose shale. Recommend vertical lift with hoist. Copy that. Dispatch replied. Prepare for insertion. 9 minutes felt like 90. As we waited, I watched Karen's house. She had returned to the balcony, coffee cup refilled, lips pressed into a faint smirk. It wasn't just about the gate. It was about the spectacle. She wanted us to need her and squirm when she said no. The unmistakable sound of rotor blades shattered the tension. The Bell 412 crested the ridge like a thunderclap. I threw on my harness, clipped into the winch line, and signaled readiness. Let's move, I said into my headset. The wind whipped up dust and leaves. Karen's robe flapped as she stepped back, startled by the force of the downdraft. For the first time, her confidence faltered. She hadn't counted on this. I looked her dead in the eye as I stepped into the air and dropped from the sky. The world spun upward as I descended, trees blurring past, earth rising to meet me. Every movement was precision. I touched down on the ledge beside Cody, heart pounding, adrenaline surging, his face contorted in relief. You came. I always do, I said gently. Let's get you out of here. As I secured his harness, I glanced up at the ridge, at that locked gate, at the woman who thought power meant saying no. This time, she didn't get the last word. I did. The extraction went smoothly, at least from a technical standpoint. Cody was hoisted up first, stabilized in the basket by Brandon, who joined me on the ledge minutes after I landed. The boy gripped my hand the whole time, his knuckles white, with pain and fear. "Don't let go," he whispered. "I won't," I assured him, gripping tighter. "You're safe now." As soon as the basket cleared the ridge and disappeared from view, I felt the weight shift. Not just the literal strain on the line, but the moment everything changed. Not just for Cody, for me, for Karen, for Iron Ridge. By the time I unhooked and made my way back to the truck, the area was swarming. Sheriff's deputies, a fire captain, 2 reporters, a drone from Channel 12 News. I caught the tail end of the anchor's voiceover. "Incredible vertical rescue conducted this morning after gated access was denied to first responders. The community demands answers." Karen stood near her hydrangeas, flanked by 2 HOA board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Her arms were crossed tightly, lips pinched, but her eyes, those sharp darting eyes, betrayed the truth. She was losing control of the narrative. Sheriff Morales approached me as I coiled the harness line. He was calm, methodical, but I knew him well enough to hear the edge in his voice. "We'll need your statement, Ryan. Already have 3 witnesses saying the gate was deliberately locked in violation of county code." I nodded, happy to comply. "I've got emails too, and the access easement, printed and signed." Behind him, Karen suddenly raised her voice. This was not an act of malice. It was protocol. The HOA board voted to restrict that trail for safety. "No, you did," said Mr. Hernandez, one of the board members. He looked tired. "You never held a formal vote, Karen. You just acted." Karen turned sharply, clearly stunned. "That's not true. We discussed it." "Discussion isn't authorization," Hernandez snapped, his voice rising. "You've been running this HOA like your personal fiefdom, and now a child almost died." Karen's mask cracked. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Shock, maybe even fear. The crowd was growing. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion and the helicopter. Whispers swirled like wind through dry grass. I saw Mrs. Delaney, who'd once been fined $200 for having a decorative flamingo, and George, who was threatened with a lien over his non-regulation porch swing. One by one, they gathered like witnesses to a long-awaited reckoning. Karen raised her voice again, more shrill this time. "You're all ignoring the liability. If something had happened on that trail, we would have been sued. The HOA would be financially exposed." I stepped forward, tired of the dance. "We're not talking about flower pots or fence colors, Karen. We're talking about human life. That gate was our fastest route, and you sealed it without any consultation. That boy could have died." She glared at me. "You're not even on the board." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm the one who shows up when someone's bleeding on a cliff." Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Karen looked around, searching for support, but the board members were stone-faced. The neighbors avoided her eyes. Even the deputy beside her started quietly jotting notes. Then came the moment that changed everything. A Channel 12 cameraman angled toward Karen and asked the one question no HOA president once broadcast. "Ms. Madsen, do you take responsibility for impeding emergency access during a life-threatening rescue?" She hesitated. Too long. No comment. That was enough. The next 48 hours moved like a landslide. I submitted my full report to the county. The sheriff's office launched an inquiry. The HOA held an emergency session, this time without Karen presiding. The board voted to remove her as president, pending a full vote from the community. That petition, it reached quorum in 6 hours. Karen tried to fight it, of course. Claimed she was being vilified by a smear campaign, but no one was listening anymore. Her kingdom of control had collapsed under the weight of one locked gate and one rescue she couldn't stop. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood never looked brighter, and it wasn't the landscaping. The HOA board had held a public recall vote on a sunny Saturday morning. A rented canopy stood in the community park, flanked by folding chairs, iced tea, dispensers, and residents who hadn't attended a meeting in years. But this one, everyone came. By noon, 93% had voted to remove Karen Madsen as HOA president. She didn't show up, not that anyone expected her to. Her reign ended, not with a bang, but with a silent email from her lawyer, citing health concerns and a hostile environment. No apology, no ownership, just a retreat behind technicalities and entitlement. But the cliffside gate, that symbol of control, was now unlocked permanently. A small metal plaque had been installed beside it, dedicated to Cody L., whose life reminded us that safety should never be gated. I didn't write the plaque. Mrs. Delaney did, with help from George and a few other neighbours. They'd organised it within 72 hours of Karen's removal. They even planted red tulips beneath it, Cody's favourite. The boy was still in recovery. His leg wrapped in a full cast, mobility limited, but his spirits were high. I visited him twice in the hospital, once with a toy helicopter, and once just to talk. His father told me they were moving. Too many bad memories here. Shame, I said genuinely. We finally cleaned the place up. Yeah, his father replied with a small grin. But sometimes you don't wait for the storm to come back. You just go where it never rained. I understood. As for Karen, the fallout continued. The county launched a civil inquiry into the HOA's governance practices. Turns out that wasn't her only questionable decision. Budget irregularities surfaced. Fines that couldn't be accounted for. Vendor kickbacks that mysteriously benefited a landscaping company owned by her cousin. The new HOA board, led by Mr. Hernandez, cooperated fully. They even hired an independent auditor. Transparency had returned like sunrise after a storm. One morning, I got a call from Sheriff Morales. "You'll want to see this," he said. It was security footage from a private gate camera at the top, and of Ridgepoint Bluff, time-stamped exactly 2 minutes before Cody's fall. Karen had walked up, turned the emergency lock key, then wrapped the chain around the gate 3 times. When she walked off, she looked satisfied. That sealed it. Charges were filed: obstruction of emergency services, negligence, and reckless endangerment. She was arrested quietly. No news cameras this time. Just a mugshot and a statement of surrender. Poetic. In a way, she built her reputation by controlling access, and now she couldn't even access her own home without a court order. But this story isn't really about her. It's about what happens when people remember their power, when the silence breaks and the whispers become voices, then votes, then action. After the recall, the community changed. Real conversations started. People waved again. Lawn chairs reappeared. Children played without parents, worrying about citation slips for noise pollution. They even asked me to join the HOA board. I declined. My work wasn't paperwork. It was cliff edges and hoist cables. It was adrenaline and urgency, and saving people who couldn't save themselves. But I did agree to attend meetings, to offer input when needed, to make sure the gate stayed open and the rules stayed fair. Still, there was one more thing I needed to do. One foggy morning, I flew back over Ridgepoint Bluff in the Bell 412. Brandon piloted while I watched the terrain roll out below. "This where it happened?" he asked. "Yeah." I said quietly. Right there. The ledge was still visible, bare and solemn. I thought about Cody, his small frame curled on stone, his blood soaking into the soil. I thought about Karen's locked gate, about how 2 minutes of pettiness nearly became a lifetime of grief. I leaned back and looked at the sky. You ever think, I said to Brandon, about how fast everything can change? He chuckled. Every time we fly. I nodded. The helicopter banked left, the bluff shrinking behind us, and I realized something simple, something sharp. Control doesn't make you powerful, but using your power to protect others, that's the kind of authority worth having. And no gate, no matter how high, no matter how locked, can stand in the way of that.